Alrighty. So, I've been gone a while. I kind of got hit with bronchitis and flu, just now getting well enough to a point where I can talk at extended periods of time. So I apologize for, I think my last video was, what, the Niner preview kind of game thing? So I apologize for that, but here we are. And the Vikings have made a general manager hire. Obviously Zimmer and Spielman gone. I think everyone expected at least Zimmer to be gone. And Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is the new general manager of your Minnesota Vikings. Now, NFL experience, he was the manager of football research and development in San Francisco from 13 through 16, and the director of football research and development for San Francisco from 17 through 19. Now, he did serve as the vice president of football operations in Cleveland for the last 2 seasons. And it was a little scarce finding some information on the guy, but he helped develop and implement advanced quantitative methods for game strategy and personnel evaluation from actually the Bears website from when they were in trying to look at him. So Andrew Berry ended up thinking very highly of this guy. Andrew Berry is the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, if you are not familiar with that name. And he promoted him to kind of be his right-hand man from San Francisco to Cleveland, and where he's been labeled a rising star. So, and he did have a pretty long quote, and for paraphrasing terms here, he says he's a very smart guy. His cognitive abilities kind of jumped out at him, and just a lot of people skills, and he could tell right away that he had a lot of knowledge of just team building, relationships, and people as a whole, despite the fact that he really, formally only led the Niners research group. So that's pretty good stuff there, I think, for the most part. So now his people skills and relationship building, I think, goes hand in hand with the Wilf's kind of collaborative term that they keep throwing out there for what they want for new leadership. So the fact that they got a guy now who is pretty much praised for how he deals with people, how he collaborates and cooperates with other people, and how he's willing to listen to basically anything and is very open-minded. That kind of checks out for what they were looking for here. And I've seen a lot of people try to put drafting of some of the Niners people in for him, as well as maybe some of the Browns. Now, I do think if we're going to say, oh, look, he helped draft Fred Warner and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, I do think we need to talk about some of the other ones. If we're going to give him the same credit for that, he did, Solomon Thomas is in that group. Reuben Foster is in that group, although Reuben Foster, possibly more of an off-field thing than an on-field thing. Dante Pettis, second-round receiver. There are some misses in here. Jalen Hurd as well. You may have heard of him. So there are some misses in there, but the hits are home runs. There's really no he may have not lived up to expectations, but he's a starter and he's not horrible. There's none of that kind of stuff. It's, Solomon Thomas didn't work. They come back 2 years later. They draft Nick Bosa, Pro Bowl out of the box. Then Reuben Foster didn't work very well. The next year, they draft Fred Warner, Pro Bowl guy, right out of the box. And, Dante Pettis, second round, raw receiver coming out, kind of projected as a good return guy and a space player early on in hopes that he could develop some more route running nuances. Come around the next year, second round, draft Deebo, very similar profile, although one is not good, the other one is the home run. So with them, I think they had a lot of that going on. Where the last 2 years in Cleveland, I think it kind of became a little bit more consistent, which is what I would focus on more than the Niners stuff. because he got promoted to Andrew Barry's right hand man. So, best case scenario, he was like the third voice they were listening to in San Francisco for those three drafts, where we kind of know he was one of the top two or three guys that were involved in the 2020 and 2021 drafts of the Cleveland Browns. Now, they end up drafting Jedrick Wills, Grant Delpit, Greg Newsome this year, and Awusa Koromora, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Anthony Schwartz. They had a lot of actual decent players come out of this, some of them really good in the case of Jedrick Wills. And something to have of note, most of the receivers on this list, I think every single one of them has some kind of kick and punt return ability. So probably expect the Vikings to start being more interested in guys like that. In 2017, they got Trent Taylor. He was a smaller slot receiver, kick and punt return. In 2018, they got Richie James. Very similar build to Trent Taylor. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones in 2020 was a punt returner at Michigan. And then last year they got Anthony Schwartz. So expect that to become maybe a thing they look for, guys that can do kick and punt return at the wide receiver position. And another thing of note that I think a lot of Viking people are going to actually rather enjoy. There were 39 picks in total that he had some kind of say with the Niners and the Browns combined. 28% of those 39 players played on the offensive or defensive lines. So I think that's good. Build in the trenches. That's how you win football games. I've always said that. I know there's a lot of like, oh, you throw the ball now. It's only receivers and corners and quarterbacks. No, how you win the game is still protect your quarterback, kill their quarterback, stop the run. That's kind of how this game is still played, and I will believe that until I die, I think. But, yeah. I wish I could be, I don't know, what's the word, more definitive with what I think. But with general managers, in hiring them, it's very hard for me to say like, oh, I think this is a good, bad, great hire without me talking to the guy. So based off everything I hear, he seems like a great hire, but only time will tell. I do think this was actually one of the better candidates out there based on resumes and just what may or may not have happened. So I do have that. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribe. Super helpful. Until next time, I bid y'all adieu.